with radio, it was like at college, it was just like this sanctuary, which is just like a place that I completely understood. As soon as I walked into the room, I was like, oh, this is where I'm meant to be. Like, I love music. I make people mix CDs. I'm on the blogs all the time. I love talking. So why wouldn't this be? This makes more sense than trying to pretend to be a more confident person. I wasn't very confident in front of the camera anyway. So being in a sort of radio studio gave me the confidence to kind of be myself.
Mixcloud.
The Inside Track.
Welcome everybody to the second season of The Inside Track, the podcast hosted by myself, Nico, Perez, co-founder and CEO at Mixcloud. I'm very excited to kick off the second season with a very special guest. We have Jamz Supernova on the line, on the video call line, direct from, I presume you're in the UK right now. Are you in London?
Yeah, Southeast London.
Southeast London. And how's your day? How's the start of your year been? Because I mean, we're now about 6-7 weeks into 2026.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's I've just sort of been easing in. I'm taking my time. I've got things that I want to do, but I'm also expecting a baby, in a few weeks. So this sort of start of the year has been kind of trying to establish like good habits and workflow, but also being aware that I'm nearing the end of a pregnancy and kind of giving myself a little bit of grace as well. So, and I just started the year everything felt new in terms of like I've not managed anymore, and kind of going into a different way of working. So it's quite exciting, I would say.
Awesome. Well, would love to kind of dig into that, being a mom and a parent as a working DJ, and I'm sure we'll get to that in a little bit, but I wanted to actually start kind of at your beginning in radio and hear from you the kind of story of how you got started in this world. And a lot of this podcast is really trying to peel back the layers and sort of like help other people understand what goes on behind the scenes within music culture and the music industry. And so I believe that your kind of early days were at Represent Radio in the UK, but would love to hear kind of like what inspired you to join them and how that journey happened.
Yeah, I mean, I'd studied radio in college, and I'd always wanted to be a presenter of some sort. So at first I thought kind of like MTV Base, the Lick kind of style, TRL, that kind of presenter. And then obviously, TV during my lifetime had changed so much, but especially in my teenage years, moving on to YouTube and the sort of, I guess the essence of work within TV was starting to dry up by the time I was kind of ready to step into it. But with radio, it was like at college, it was just like this sanctuary, which is just like a place that I completely understood. As soon as I walked into the room, I was like, oh, this is where I'm meant to be. Like, I love music. I make people mix CDs. I'm on the blogs all the time. I love talking. So why wouldn't this be? This makes more sense than trying to pretend to be a more confident person. I wasn't very confident in front of the camera anyway. So being in a sort of radio studio gave me the confidence to kind of be myself. And also I really got involved in the behind the scenes of the radio, like what it takes to produce and to edit and things like that. So when I started, I had like a kind of formative beginning quite early on out of college, which was that I started an internship within a year of leaving college at the BBC. And within that same week, I started a show on Represent, which was a youth station. So essentially, there was this period of my life in which I was learning and working in a professional environment, that being the BBC, going from my internship, coming back, working as an assistant producer, but then having this radio show on a station that was starting to really develop themselves outside of just being a charity. They had just got an FM license. They had got a little bit more funding. So I was able to try all the things out that I was learning at the BBC and then run to Peckham, and where the station was on a kind of like a block of estates. Like it was like you got the shops, you got the block of flats above it, and then in one of the units was the radio station, and I'd run there and then do the show. And I was just kind of emulating what I was seeing at the BBC. There was a presenter called Mr. Jam, who had a really good tastemaker show, 7 till 9 p.m. It was kind of first of its kind on One Extra, which was the black station that I was working at. And he was like introducing dubstep, a lot of like black dance music, and I would steal his music because I had access to it, and I would burn CDs and then go to represent and try and be him, really.
Were you influenced by pirate radio kind of growing up? Were there any stations that were kind of formative in your musical appreciation and taste?
Yeah, definitely. There was a station, I want to say it was like Freeze FM. I lived down by an area called New Cross Gate, which obviously some people will be like, where is that? But if you think of it in football terms, it's near Millwall. So it's quite an iconic area, Millwall, New Cross, Bermondsey. So down there was a station that I could get called Freeze FM. And I remember listening to that and discovering that when I was in my first year of secondary school, so around 11, 12 years old. I'd always loved this station called Choice FM, but I could never get it in my house. And it's now called Capital Extra, but we don't talk about them. They're our nemesis. But I loved Choice FM, and I could never get it in the house. So I would always argue with my stepdad in the car on the way to school, like who got to listen to what radio. He wanted XFM, which was like the indie station, and I wanted Choice FM, which was like the hip hop and R&B station. So we'd had to alternate every morning. So yeah, radio's just always been a massive part, and I used to, tape the radio as well, just tape the chart show when I was sort of under 10, and it was just a pastime as well. It was a kind of world that I could go into myself. If I'm hanging out in my bedroom, I'm probably listening to the radio or listening to something. It was a place to get new music. And I remember getting a Freeview box, which is like a TV box that would give you extra channels outside of your 1 to 5. And then that had access to even more radio stations. So that allowed us to go to check out DAB stations, like digital stations. And that's how I came across the BBC Radio 1 Extra. And that's how I was able to listen when I got the TV box. So I was about 15.
Did you start there originally kind of like producing shows at BBC? And then what was that transition to kind of getting in front of the mic and starting to host shows? How did that happen? And kind of what skills did you have to learn to like get in front of the mic, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I always knew I wanted to be in front of the mic. I just saw working in production as like the stepping stone to get in front of the mic, but it didn't kind of work out in that way. It took me a lot longer to be able to get in front of the mic. So I worked in production for about 5 years, and I kind of went through the ranks from the intern to producer, essentially, over those 5 years. And I worked across every show they had across 1 Extra and Radio 1, so the black station and the youth station. And then, yeah, to get in front of the mic, well, one, I had to get good, I had to find my voice, and a lot of that was done at Represent Radio. So during those 5 years of me going up the ranks as a producer, I was also perfecting my craft at Represent. Because at first you think, all you need is personality, right? You think that's kind of all you need is to be bubbly, and maybe we've kind of come back full circle. Maybe that is all you need. But, at the time it was kind of like, well, how many air miles do you have? And air miles is kind of like, how much hours have you put into being on air in any kind of setting? It could be a community radio, it could be private radio, but before you come to the BBC, we want to know how much air miles you have. So being at Represent was like me getting my air miles. So I ended up doing like a drive time show. They offered me a drive time show. So I thought about it in my head. I was like 21 and I've been at the BBC for a few years, and I thought, okay, this is it. They've said I'm not good enough. They keep saying I'm not good enough. But this would be my chance to become good enough, because I would be doing 2 hours a day for 5 days. If I times that by a year, like I'd start to work towards my 10,000 hours. So I took it, and I would work in the mornings. I would work on a shift at BBC 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. Then I would run to Represent and do the drive time show 5 till 7.
Wow.
And then I would run back to BBC to do another shift 8 p.m. till 2 a.m. because I needed the money.
Wow.
And I did that for I only lasted 9 months doing it at that rate.
I feel like you would have got 20,000 air miles at that rate.
I think it was the biggest, learning, curve that I could have ever gone on. I don't think I'd even have the energy to do that. I don't know how I did.
That sounds absolutely exhausting. But I'm curious, like, do do you keep in touch with the folks at the BBC? I'm curious, like, what's your take on, BBC today in 2026 when there's so many outlets now, right? You've got not just kind of FM, you've got DAB, you've got all the digital platforms, you've got social media. Like, do you keep in touch with them? What is your kind of take on, how they're navigating the digital landscape these days?
I mean, I'm still there, so I'm a BBC lifer. I'm probably what you would call a BBC lifer, and I probably will always be there in some capacity. It's kind of all I've known since I was 19, and I'm 35 now, so it's a long time. And it's weird because you see people coming and going and ultimately coming back. I don't know what kind of weird pull they have on us, but we always end up back there in some different, capacity. I think the digital landscape, I mean, I started off at One Extra, which was the Black Station, and then I moved over to Six Music in the last 5 years. I've been at Six Music, and both of the stations were already digital offerings, only digital offerings. You couldn't get them, outside of having a Freeview box or a DAB radio or the newer cars. And I guess the hope was when those stations launched that the world would become digital. They thought it was going to be like this big switch and then we'd all become digital. But, it took a long time. And actually, the world didn't become digital. All that got better was the internet became faster. That's probably what's helped us a lot, is that most cars now you can connect your phone. If you haven't got a DAB radio, you can still connect your phone and you can listen to any station you want to listen to through the internet at a pretty good speed. So I think that has definitely helped to shape the stations that I'm on and the reach. There's a little bit more intention maybe with people that do listen because they've found it, they've saved it, they come back to it. They make an effort to open the app to go to it. It's not as easily accessible. But yeah, I mean, it's an institution and I will always think we could be faster. We could be doing things a lot quicker, a lot faster. But I guess there's many flaws and bureaucracy and, red tape. But I think if I've learned anything through working at like youth radio and then going to a station that's more open than that, I think that you have to widen the audience without compromising the offering. I think you need to be very specific with what you offer in terms of the sound and the identity of a station. But I think you need to widen the reach. So is it just about 16 to 24-year-olds, because they're not listening to radio. And if you only focus on 16 to 24-year-olds, then you're constantly fighting a battle that I don't think you can win in this attention economy. So I think if you open it.
Yeah, I remember seeing graphs of kind of younger generations and how much they listen to radio, and it's kind of gone down if you look at it solely through the lens of like tuning in to the FM dial. But I think that there are so many other ways to listen to radio now, like whether it's, DAB, through radio stations' websites, online. And so I do wonder sometimes if those graphs are like counting all of the different channels and ways that people are tuning in.
Yeah, and I don't think they do. They're not like, oh, well, here's somebody that only listens to this particular mixed stream,
Yeah.
They're not seeing that as radio. It is this little booklet that who ticks what.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm curious, you said that you feel like they need to widen the reach. Is that kind of, are you thinking that mostly from the kind of age range perspective, or also kind of sounds and kind of styles of music? Can you expand on that just a little bit?
Yeah, I think just more, and this is kind of general radio, across the board. I think more aimed at youth stations. I think in broadening the range of the age. If we know that there's so much competition with our phones and apps and attention spans, then you can't change people. You have to adapt to how they are. And it's funny, like with my podcast, and it's interesting, and you must find this as well. I mean, obviously, the Instagram is a platform within itself as a listenership. There are some people that will be like, oh yeah, I love your podcast, I listened the other day. And I'm like, oh yeah, which episode? They're like, oh, the one that you posted on Instagram. So you just watched the clip. But that's how they believe that they've consumed the podcast, because they've consumed the clip. And that's in itself kind of took me a little bit of trying to get my head around that. Not everybody's going to click through. Actually, a very small percentage, is going to click through.
Yeah, it's sort of like this big top of the funnel, like open sort of side of things where like people might dip into it a little bit, and then obviously there's going to be kind of less people who kind of go through to listen to the whole thing. But I do kind of think of and see social media as sort of a way to reach a lot of people, but at a very kind of like shallow level. Like it's not really the forum to kind of go deeper than that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And you kind of got to just accept it. Again, you can't change the nature of what it is. That is the platform. That is how people spend their time on it, trying to change people. It's just there will be other platforms for the long form moments, or for the deeper listen. And I think as well, when I started at One Extra, I was very much like an advocate of like, this is a black music station, but there's so much black music that you're not playing. And that was really important for me. I was kind of on this mission and this quest to like expand their notion of what black music could be. Why are we not playing the new jazz guys that are coming through? Why are we not playing the stuff that is more alternative? In any genre, to me, if they're black and they're making music, we should be playing them.
Yeah, it's interesting. We had Elijah on this podcast in the first season, and he was making a lot of good points around how even within that definition of black music, a lot of it tends to be US and a lot of it tends to be from like the early 2000s. I think he did some research into kind of like playlists on One Extra and one of the capital stations, and it kind of counting the number of times that they were playing 50 Cent versus kind of supporting young black British artists. It was kind of like just very like striking just how the playlists and the kind of songs that got rotated were still sort of stuck in the mid 2000s. I don't know.
You would make a joke about Joe Budden, Pump It Up.
Yes.
Because he hates that song. I mean, Elijah had a great point, and not only did he, it's not only that what I love about Elijah, he didn't just make a sweeping statement. He did the research to back it up. He listened. He did a graph. Like, he spent hours and hours listening. And I think that's something that I don't know where it would be discussed, but I think it should, something that definitely should be discussed. And I think that's one of the things I really, when I got the opportunity to come to Six Music, because it was offered to me because of what I was playing on One Extra, because there was actually crossover with the artists that I was playing on One Extra that were kind of Six Music mainstays. So they were underground in my world over here, but they were mainstream over here. Like a good example would be your Ezra collectives. And when I got to Six, like I had actually been doing another radio show like for the British Council as well, which was like 100% British music. And that was kind of like a job radio for hire kind of person. And I had a great time doing it. And what I loved about it was that it was my job to put together a 2-hour radio show, all my music, all my choices, but every genre. I had to make sure that I covered every genre, and it had to be British, 100% British. So that kind of opened me up a little bit musically as well. So then when I had the chance to go on Six Music, I was like, okay, so I've already got these alternative black artists that you're supporting as your sort of main hub of artists. Then I'm also across all the bands that you guys are supporting as well, because I've been doing this other radio show for a few years and starting to just like find cool ways to find music, good playlists to follow, expanding my taste and my notion. So, okay, get that. And then I had a piece of my knowledge missing in music, which was old school music, really, essentially. There was a big sort of, I'd always been so much like on this new music, like my whole life, really, that I never really stopped to look back. And when I got to Six, that was one of the things that they wanted me to incorporate into my show. And I was like, well, how? I don't get it. Like, how do you want me to do this? And I meant to like, I don't understand, like, like I couldn't think about the how, but as the years kind of went on, it just became like this natural instinct to ask a question, hear a song, and see where that would kind of lead me, or what that would lead me to, next.
Yeah.
So I've always felt like, dig a little bit
deeper into the back catalogs and everything. Yeah.
Exactly. Go down the wormhole, think about this specific era, think about this specific time. I mean, I feel like my whole radio career has been like one big, like my master's. I've always worked. I never went to university. I never went to, I didn't do anything past college. But the last, I guess, 10 years have been like, I'm basically like almost a professor at this rate.
Yeah. got way more than 20,000 air miles at this point.
Yeah, which I
Yeah.
loved, and that's why I'm still doing it, and that's why I'm still there, because I'm always learning all the time.
And I think I saw you're also doing a partnership with Bandcamp, right? You've got this Bandcamp club or clubs. Can you talk us a little bit through like how that works, what you do there in terms of curation?
Yeah, so it's essentially it's like an album club, like you would have a book club or a film club. I pick an album for my subscribers, and they get the album into their collection as soon as it comes out, the first of the month, whatever the album I've chosen is, they get it. Then we have like a members board where we like can chat to each other about the album, and then I do an interview with the artist. It's like a written Q&A that they get that month, and then we have a listening party as well. And for at least out of 5, I think we've done 5, and 4 out of 5 of the artists came to the listening party and would like, oh, I made this track when this happened, I made this track when that happened. So it's just a really nice way to experience music. And I think, Bandcamp's a platform that I became really passionate about in lockdown and started using really heavily as a sort of way to find music. It's got a great interface. It's easy to, it's easy to navigate. You can really narrow down your searches, but there's still the element of like human curation, and the fact that the artists get paid pretty much instantly when you buy it. Okay, yes, there's processing fees, but when we're thinking about streaming and someone that's coming from running a label, 2020 was actually probably like streaming and Bandcamp. You want to be hitting both, you want to be getting both. But streaming, you still felt like you could, if you get the right playlist, if you get the right support, like you're earning, like, a lot of our catalogue, so because I digress, but a lot of our catalogue from the label recouped, in a short period of time through platforms like Spotify, and just kind of hitting the algorithm and being in. And then Bandcamp was like the place for electronic music for my label, which is where electronic music was a little bit harder to place on Spotify if it kind of fell between the gaps. But you had this kind of direct to consumer, direct to DJ platform that you could sell music on. And then now it's like, the streaming rate has gone down so low. I wouldn't even blink about what we would get on Spotify, but on Bandcamp it was so important for us to kind of measure our success against the sales, and even that's changed over time. Because people have less disposable income. My partner was talking about his label. They used to clear at least £2,000 a month on Bandcamp, and now it's like 500. So, and that's just again the nature of people. Things are changing. But with this album club, it's almost just like, it almost just offers a little reset, because it's like, depending on the subscribers is the amount that the artist gets. And I was like doing the quick maths of it. I was like, okay, cool. So if I make this artist, this album this month, my album of the month, the artist instantly gets $2,500. It's like, where else are they getting that for their music? Which they should do. They should get that for their music. They definitely put that and a lot more into an album to make it realistically. And that's why I do it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. And you get to use your platform to like champion other people and, help people find out about new music. I think that's an incredible thing. I think that's really, really powerful. But I wanted to come back to kind of what you were talking about in terms of finding new music, because I think Bandcamp is a really amazing place for that. But I was curious really on how has that process changed for you in the last, say, 10 years? It sounds like in the early days, it was kind of like, just like me, I used to hit record on the tape recorder when a good song came on the radio. Fast forward to like, lockdown period, and everybody's kind of like stuck at home. So you can't even if you wanted to go to a record shop, you can't go to a record shop. But yeah, I'm curious how that evolution or how things have changed over the last 5 to 10 years in terms of the ways in which you find and discover new music.
Yeah, it definitely, you have to evolve. You do have to evolve with every kind of platform. I think that's kind of offered to you in some respect, depending on the music that you're trying to find. So I remember like you said, starting with the tape recorder, then the internet was just this like, oh my God, LimeWire. I can search any song and download it, obviously illegally. Obviously, I have redeemed because I've got redemption because I spend so much money on music now. But I did a lot of bootlegging, and I had a lot of cousins like in different places that were just like download like gigs and gigs of music and then turn them into mix CDs, and then I distribute them. And then I really got into blogs. So when I first started One Extra, they weren't like up on the blogs and what was happening. But that's where like that sort of left field R&B was sitting. I don't know if you remember, like Solange had her own blog, like Saint
Yeah,
Heron.
can you name check some blogs? I'm curious, like what
Yeah, Pigeons and Planes,
yeah.
Saint Heron. I think there's one called Pinboard. There was loads. I even like some of the editorial publications like Fader. I would always go back a week of looking at what they had posted like musically. So I was a massive, massive fan of blogs. Then I moved to SoundCloud, and then I would go back like 7 days worth of music on SoundCloud, in my kind of stream feed. And that's when I kind of was still Represent, but I connected with like a lot of the guys in the States that were doing like the sort of alternative soulful hip hop sounds with electronic music. So like your Selections, for example. So I would basically invite them to come on my show and then upload the show. They would do a mix for me or whatever, and then I would upload the show to SoundCloud, etc. But yeah, I was finding a lot of edits, a lot of bootlegs. Then those producers went on to make original music, etc. Then that kind of started to get quite EDM-y and hard to find things. That shifted, and then that's kind of when I would have said I'd moved to Bandcamp. Well, I used to kind of have a mixture of a little bit of SoundCloud, a little bit of Bandcamp, a little bit of editorial streaming services. At one point were really good, especially for when I was doing the Best of British show for the British Council. I found like some of the Spotify playlists were actually really good for emerging bands, and to find bands in there. They had some, or for like more alternative stuff. I could be like, right, I don't know, alternative bands, and there'd be a playlist, for it. And then editorials like Fader or like Pigeons and Planes were also having their own playlist within your Spotify's. Then that kind of died, and then I always stuck it out with Bandcamp, and then I'd probably say now it's Bandcamp. It's also Boomcat. I love Boomcat. And it's actually probably going back into record shops.
It's funny you say that.
I had to come full circle.
Yeah, a few people have been kind of saying that to me recently, just how the atmosphere and the kind of just that, I don't know, it's the real world thing, right? Like it's just kind of going in, kind of digging, looking through the crates, maybe somebody makes you a recommendation, things like that. And it does sort of feel maybe coming full circle for, I guess, people who maybe started their journey discovering music pre LimeWire and Napster and stuff like that, like in the 90s. But it is kind of interesting that we have all this digital music available, like 120,000 songs put up every day. But then we kind of come back to this kind of real world place where there's somebody in the record store who's kind of like, maybe put 12 inches up on the wall, and there's something that's quite special about that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's overwhelming. The amount of music is overwhelming that that you listen to in a week, or the access that you have. And even on a platform that I love as much as Bandcamp, it has changed the amount of music and the quality of music since 2020 to now. I do think because it is quite a necessary income stream for a lot of producers and artists, they're uploading all the time because they're living off that money. But that doesn't always mean that what they're uploading is like has had the time to mature, and there's obviously a happy medium, and I'm down for both. I love a quick banger, and I also love a project that's taken a long time to come together and has a real kind of world and subject and sonic palette around it. But you have to wade through so much of the quick releases to get to those sort of larger, more impactful releases that you're going to be listening to in 5-10 years. And sometimes I ask if music feels so throwaway, like I sometimes ask myself, like, why am I playing this? Am I playing it because it's new? Am I playing it with what I have? I have a sort of checklist in my mental head of like why I'm playing it, because it can't just be because it's new, because new doesn't always mean that it's good. And so sometimes now when I look back at my track list, actually it's not all new. Actually, it's not all new. And my parameter of what new music is now is a lot wider. When I was on One Extra, it was 4 weeks, we would say. If it was out of 4 weeks, then it's old. We're not playing it for a new music show. Whereas I just don't think that is feasible now for me. If it's like, I don't really have a cut-off limit. Even if it was 2 years old and I came across it today and I liked it, and to me it felt like more of an important play than a track that came out yesterday, then I played the one from 4 years ago. So I think my intentions have changed as well.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, like, quality, good music is timeless. So it shouldn't really matter if it came out 2 weeks or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But
and
I
that's
guess
the record shop, isn't it? Within the record shop, most of that, it does have that you have the newer section. Personally, I don't really care about the new section when I go to a record shop. Like, I only kind of want to buy older records.
Yeah. But I guess that segues quite nicely to ask about your label, Future Bounce. And so you've kind of now stepped into, or you're like on the other side of the table. Previously you were kind of the curator and the tastemaker. Now I guess you're kind of A&Ring and kind of choosing who to sign, things like that. What is that process like for you in terms, I guess there it is more new music or younger artists or emerging artists that you're looking to sign?
Yeah, the labels are, it's been a roller coaster of like learning for me. And, it started off as an extension of what I do on the radio. If I like it, I play it. If I like it, I sign it. And it was kind of very much like passion driven. And then it becomes a business. And I think I struggled with that transition of it becoming a business, and actually kind of, looking at the bottom, the P&L of it all, and, having to make harsher decisions, or, when you start to self-fund, or when you have someone to answer to, or if you take money from somebody, and you have someone to answer to, it becomes less about let's just sign it because I love it and I like it. And it becomes a whole different, kettle of fish. I think we were very lucky with the early stuff we signed. I don't know if it was just timing, it was a good time. I probably wouldn't play the records that I signed back then now. My taste has grown and developed, but at that time, that's what I was sort of playing on the radio. So you could probably hear the shift if you listen through the catalogue. You can hear my taste shifting as well. And also, I think I didn't think much more into the moment of this is a track that I like right now. This is an artist I like right now. Let's sign it and do it. Whereas now, if I was sitting across from an artist, I'd really want to know what your 5 year plan. What is your plan after this? Because I feel like it's in this kind of like, I guess, like the attention economy and things like that, and this fast paced nature of how things move. It's really hard when a label as small as mine will invest, capital and time into an artist and give them everything and kind of, like put out a project that's still underground because we're working with up and coming artists, and then there's nothing and then after that there's nothing after there's nothing from the artist for a period of time after that, like could be years. It's hard, because then it's like, oh, we just stop there, and I never wanted to sign artists beyond one or two projects. I didn't have the funds to be able to give advances that would, I didn't want to lock them in anyway. We always wanted to be a springboard, but I kind of needed the springboard to spring, in order for it to kind of help us, I guess, in a sense, make back what we had put in during that time. So I think it's interesting. I've got like a period of my catalogue that's like, just does its thing. It was a moment in time. It just over there, still doing its thing, where everyone's getting paid. There's a period of like being really ambitious, a bit more stepping up, being really ambitious with the projects, but not making any money. And then there's a period of time where I kind of had to very much like narrow down what we were spending, how we were spending, and maybe be a bit more strategic with the releases. And then ultimately, I kind of got to a point where I just need to pause. I don't think running a label on your own is very fun.
It's a lot of work, right?
Um, it's a lot of work. Yeah, it's a lot of work. You are the frontline person. You're all the hats, um, and I think that's quite hard to wear all those hats, especially when this is people's livelihood. This is people's dreams that you're handling. They need to be handled with care. Um, and artists are sensitive people anyway, let alone when you're releasing their music. So I've learned so much. I mean, I've had like deep therapy through running a label. But yeah, at the moment, I don't know how to release music today. And whilst I don't know how to successfully release music today, and whilst I don't know, I don't think it's right for me to take a chance on people's releases.
I mean, it
I
sounds
just
like
don't know.
what you were kind of like landing on was that kind of it's more trying to find those people who, it's not a flash in the pan. It's not like I'm going to make this track or this album and then don't really know after that. It's more like somebody who's got their own sound or a vision of where they want to take it and are kind of thinking in years rather than months, which kind of is in a weird way kind of the polar opposite to this kind of attention economy where we live in, where it's like, what did you post yesterday, which is it's kind of a strange juxtaposition, but
yeah. And they're not always the best artists, the ones that have like got this like, really ones that are more business minded aren't always the best artists, in terms of like the music, the feeling, the trying something different, So it's a really hard place to be in. And also it's like as well, I think I know what I was starting to you don't want to be driven by socials, but you want the artist to promote the music. And that causes a lot of tension, I think, eventually, especially when you're working on a long-term project. Like, yeah, if it's a quick club singles, that's fine. But if you're working on someone on an album or a mixtape or a wider project, like there has to be a plan in place to talk about your music beyond posting one thing. you know. But then that's hard. I feel like such a capitalist saying that, like I've become the person through running a label. I became the person probably that I didn't want to be, which is when I would sit in A&R meetings and working at major labels and under Sony and stuff like that. You become those people because ultimately it comes back to being a business. It's hard.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it comes back to being a realist, and I think the idea that you can kind of make something and then the world just comes to it and finds it is sort of, I think it's kind of wishful thinking in some ways, and it's not recognizing the reality of, yeah, there's 120,000 songs that were put out yesterday. There's a ton of competition out there, right? And some of it, is going to be good. Some of it's going to be absolute trash. It's going to be the whole.
And some is just like mediocre. There's a whole middle section that is just like, yeah, cool.
Yeah,
and that's hogging a lot of space.
Yeah, but honestly, just assuming that people will find you, I think in this day and age, like it's not realistic. It's not like the reality of the situation where there's just so much stuff that's being put out. And then there's everything beyond music, right? There's films and videos and Netflix series. And so it's like, I think I know I've talked to a lot of artists where there's like this friction of like, I don't want to just have to like post things on social media. I don't want to have to like be a hamster in that wheel. And I totally empathize with it. But maybe, I don't know if there's an answer where I've seen a few people, like I think it was Bicep who were, there was like ways to get creative in doing that I think if I mean, artists are creative people, right? Like if you take that creativity to the realm of social media, like maybe there's an angle there where like it can actually be fun and different and can make something weird and people notice it.
And it's storytelling. It's another angle of storytelling. It's world building. And when I see it done well, I'm like, oh, that could really get me going. Like that excites me. Like I have a friend and she's an artist, and her second album, like the world she built, I was like, oh, we have leveled up. Like there's a story. Like there's everything played into each other. Even the grade of the videos that she was creating, even the way she was talking about the inspiration from the cover to the talking about how growing up with her grandma. Like there was just there was so much that you were able to take from her socials about the album. So when you listen to the album, you're in it, you're completely in it. And I think when artists get it right and it's still them in their own way, like that is, that's the most, for me, is like an exciting artist. That's the vision that we're kind of talking about. That is hard to find, but when it clicks, it's like, wow, that's incredible. That I never thought to do it like that. That's such a interesting way to share your music and to talk about it.
You mentioned that you're expecting baby number 2, right, in a couple of weeks' time. Yeah. Very, very exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And obviously you're kind of, a working parent as well, working within this music industry and culture. And I'm just curious, like, how have you found that transition, having is it a daughter or son and another one on the way?
Daughter.
Daughter.
2 daughters. I'll have 2 daughters, hopefully, by the end of this, which is kind of, crazy. Yeah, I'd always put off, well, I say put off, but relatively speaking, having a child because I was so ambitious. And I thought that anything that would stop it or derail it would, I just couldn't get my head around that. But then the pandemic happened. And then I was like, oh, well, everything's been taken anyway. So, and I'm still fine. And I'm still here. I still love what I do. I still have something to hold on to, So it kind of reassured me that maybe if I did have a child, that there would always be something to hold on to, and I'm a little bit more in control than I think I am in my career. And then, the reality of it was, we just sort of brought her into everything that we did. Me and my partner, he works in music as well. He's a mix engineer, but also a DJ. And we spent a lot of the first couple of years, like they would come to all the gigs with me and we would travel together, be backstage at festivals or sometimes nightclubs if they were liberal nightclubs, or event spaces.
I think my colleague Xanthi, who I believe you worked with way back in the day at BBC, I think she saw you, maybe it was We Out Here Festival or one of the festivals with the baby, and you were kind of like DJing and then kind of like in between mixes, like going to say hey to your baby and stuff. And I love that. I love that scene.
Yeah, it was amazing time, and I'm definitely not the first woman in music to have had a child at all, but maybe it was a very visible time in showing it and being able to show it. It's interesting though, because now, having done it that way, I now want to separate the two. So with the second baby, like I said to my partner, we're going to a festival. We've got these festivals. I've got quite a lot of festivals still booked in this summer, and there are some that I just need to go to on my own and do the gigs and compartmentalize mom and DJ, and even the experiences. Like there's a couple of events that he's going to come to as well. And I'm like, yeah, well, let's alternate. We want to watch live music. Like, I think one of us should take the kids back. As fun as it was involving her in everything, there was also a slight, I feel, the duality of not quite being in one place or the other.
And both of you, right? Like if both parents are there and you're both kind of taking care of the baby, and it's like neither of you is really able to like fully be in it.
Right.
And so maybe just taking those shifts, taking those turns actually ultimately lets you both kind of get a little
experience.
Bit more
yeah. And if I'm going to watch live music or watch a DJ, like I don't want it to be background. I think it's disrespectful. Like I want it to be like front and center. I'm craving the experience of whatever that artist or DJ has to give to wash over me. And I can't, if I'm like over here, patting the back and giving a bottle. Obviously, there's times when you have to do that, but if I have the choice this time round, I think I'd kind of want to separate it. But and there's also, I guess, the feeling that you're doing neither that well. So I
Yeah,
kind of want to
juggling
have,
so many things.
have this opportunity to divide my week and divide my time, and be like DJ, and then my mom. We're doing a lot of the childcare ourselves this time round, and I'm kind of looking forward to the all the stuff that I resisted the first time round, the baby groups, the um, meeting other moms. I'm like super down for. Like, yeah, I think like there'll be 3 days of the week where I'm just going to be in my jogging bottoms with the baby attached to me and going to all the groups and doing all the things. And then on the weekend, I'll be the DJ again.
That's a good way to do it, I think.
Yeah, yeah, you're learning all the time, but it it makes everything make sense to me. I think we can get so, you know, I love music. I love it as an industry. I love that this is my livelihood and my job. I feel so lucky and so blessed, especially right now where it feels so hard, and it is hard. I have to be grateful every day that we can somehow survive. We've somehow survived another day in this. We can pay our bills. Oh, great. Okay. Okay, cool. Because you speak to people. I spoke to my friend the other day, and I hadn't seen her for a while. Wicked DJ, like technically sick, she was like, "I'm thinking of quitting. I just can't do this anymore. I just can't. I can't take the rejection. I can't take the uncertainty. I can't afford to. I can't afford to do it anymore." And it just kind of broke my heart because she's so talented and so good. But I also think, yeah, having a child or having a family, it kind of gives a different perspective, gives a different hustle. Like, I know there's a baseline of money that I have to make regardless. So if it's not coming from DJing, it's got to come from somewhere else.
Yeah.
I
You gotta
know that I'm
support,
self-employed.
provide.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
provider like kind of kicks in. Like, I know I'm really hoping the baby doesn't come early because I really need these next 3 weeks of work, because that's the difference of like financial forecasting for my business,
Yeah.
So it's a
And
lot.
I know in your DIY handbook podcast, you cover some of these topics of like, thinking about P&Ls and thinking financially and things like that. And kind of, I'm just curious, like, have any of the people you've spoken to in that helped you kind of in this process of becoming a parent who's also working in the music industry? Or alternatively, are there any kind of lessons that you've kind of like picked up through those conversations that you feel like they're still kind of resonating in the back of your head and worth kind of sharing with other people?
Yeah, I mean, I think with those, I always, maybe not so much in regards to parenthood, but I'm always listening and seeking advice, either directly or indirectly, just from like, fascinating people that sit on the intersection of creativity and business, whatever realms that is. Um, I always loved, my episode of Toddler and him sort of talking about his journey and his transition. And he's super creative, but he also understands the business side of things as well. So a lot of what I am doing or have been trying to do, he had done. He had done the label, he had done the events. He's now doing his YouTube channel. Like, I'm about to go and see him in a month's time and go and pick his brain about his YouTube channel. And also watching him, we spoke about evolution a lot during the conversation about how do you evolve, and he is constantly always evolving in front of my eyes, as a producer, as a DJ or not DJ, whether he wants to DJ, that sort of thing, and or how he expresses his love of music, always evolving. I really took a lot from the it was Zubin Irani on IP. So there's an episode about intellectual property, and I found that really that's always stuck with me. And even up until recently, I was having a deal on the table, but it was about IP, and I thought, I have to practice what I preach, And that episode was like, that was me having gone through an experience of like relinquishing a lot of IP without putting frameworks in place. So that episode, definitely always stuck with me, because I also think, but then also I soften around things as well, because if you want something to grow, you have to, it takes working with other people. So you could have 100% of zero or 50% of a lot. So yeah, Matt actually, who taught me that, was a mentor, not on the podcast, but he runs Secretly Music Group, so all the labels and all the distribution under that. And he was my mentor for 2 years. So we would meet on a call and have conversations every 2 weeks. So yeah, I'm just like a big sort of sponge for any kind of experience and information people can get. I listen to a lot of, like, I'm into my kind of women founder podcast right now. So Emma Grede, and then nothing to do with any of my business or finance or creative interests. Like, they're often makeup founders or beauty e-commerce. But
sometimes the life lessons and the skills apply, right? Like, it's kind of
definitely,
whether you're working on a project, starting a new makeup label or something like that, or starting a record label, a lot of times it's like just the same kind of transferable skills of like thinking about, like you were saying earlier, what's the bottom line of this? If I put in 10K, 20K, whatever into this project, how do we think about and forecast, like, what is it going to come back with? Like, is it worth investing in this? And I've found the same thing at Mixcloud. Like, we often talk about like different projects that we can work on or partnerships that we can do, and it's like we've learned to become better at trying to like assess the future and trying to judge like what is going to do, and also sometimes like breaking it down and like, is there a way, like, for example, we could do like a small experiment to test the water, before sinking in a bunch of time, effort, resource, money into this. Like, is there like a small version that we can like test it out? And I remember in the pandemic, we built live streaming into the platform, and that was super popular, and everybody from like Questlove to John Digweed was doing like tons of live streams and stuff. And then we thought that people maybe wanted to also host concerts and do like ticketed live streams, like bands and things like that. And so, we organized, I think it was like 4 or 5 of them. We had Flying Lotus and Roisin Murphy and a bunch of amazing artists and stuff. But we built into this big thing in our mind, and the reality was like, actually people didn't really see the value. Like, they didn't want to buy a ticket for it. Like, there wasn't just enough demand there. And so I think that taught us a lot of lessons in terms of just like staying grounded and trying to like experiment and try things a little bit before you go super large and big with it.
Yeah, and I always think it's like, I always feel a bit torn in being led by just doing the thing that I just creatively, wholeheartedly just believe in, or looking at the data. Because sometimes you have 2 types of people that are like one or the other, and I think when you're in the middle, it can be. I don't always know what the right decision is, because if the data is saying one thing but my heart is saying another, then I don't know where to go. And part of me is like, wants to be so rich that it doesn't matter. I'll just try it. I just want to try everything, if I can make the money over there, then I can try the things over here, to keep me fulfilled. But I mean, that comes with its own set of things as well. But it's really interesting that you said that. And I love Mixcloud. I've been on Mixcloud since the beginning, and I used it as a way of, when I was on One Extra, I was kind of getting put into a box, and I always wanted to DJ and like physically be a DJ in the club, and I loved electronic music, but no one kind of like really saw me as that. So I decided, I was like, right, I'm going to do like a club jams mix once a month, where I would make a mix once a month, upload it on Mixcloud, give it, it's got a title, volume 1, volume 2. I would do a track list for it, make it like a drop essentially. But it kind of just, immersed me into people's consciousness as a DJ, and the producers as well. Like, oh, she also is playing our stuff. I thought we only knew her, for that. And even, it's so funny, I still get in my emails now, like, put up at all nights, or from the festival sets as well, because I think it's really a great place like to capture moments as well, like worldwide, not worldwide, sorry, We Out Here, We Out Here set from 2021, or we Out Here set from 2025. But one of the ones that always comes back up is my jazz cafe all night? Like every other day there's a comment on it, or there's somebody like, I'm like, how is this thing from like years ago? I don't think it's particularly very good. But people keep on going back to it. So I think, Mixcloud's really, really, really important, place, especially for DJs, man, like, and radio people. People have launched their radio careers out of it. I always find it funny when people say to me like, I really want to do be on air, and I really want to have a radio show. And I'm like, are you making the show? Like, no, but I can't get on insert, I don't know, any station, local station or whatever, or community station. And I'm like, well, make it at home. You have a laptop, you've got editing software, upload it to Mixcloud, and kind of like go from there.
Yeah. It's true. I think sometimes people maybe wait to get that stamp of approval or even kind of permission, or maybe it's another platform, but it's like, in today's age, like, you can go very, very far just solo, right? And I think a lot of good, whether it's a record label or radio station or anybody else, they kind of want to see a little bit that you can kind of have that initiative and get things started and do it yourself, basically, at least. DIY
proof of concept.
Right?
I was going to ask, actually, you said about the trying to do the bigger events and stuff like that, because I noticed with the Bandcamp album club, it's like, so people more than like, they love the album, they love getting the Q&A, but getting them to the listening party, it's hard. It's really hard.
Well, this is the thing, right? Like, what we found with the kind of live stream concerts was like, again, it's like, you're not just, we're in an attention economy, right? And you're not only just competing against other music offerings, you're competing against Netflix, YouTube, Spotify, whatever sports game is on, the Olympics, like, and so I think that rallying people at the same point in time, even if it's as easy as like going in your web browser or on your phone, it's like, I feel as though everybody is more busy than ever. And so trying to find that synchronicity of the same place and time is really hard. That said, though, all the real life stuff is, we saw so many streams in the pandemic, and then, post-pandemic, after the lockdowns, people flooded back into real life venues and places. And I think people like, I guess it's kind of similar to what we were talking about with record stores. I think people really do value just like getting together in person, and that is the same place and the same time, right? But it feels like maybe the real in-world person element of that is really, really crucial.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think also maybe I'm learning to reset my metrics. I went to an artist event the other day, and she was showing a film that's related to her new project coming out, but the project's not out, but the film's out, and there's one song out. But she had, I would say, about like core 30 fans there. Now, you could have seen the metrics as like only 30 people showed up, like, or you could have said this is an artist this is an artist that's getting to know her 30 core London-based fan base that are going to buy the merch, that are going to be happy that they can sit and have a drink with her, that they can ask her any kind of question. They're getting this first-hand like experience with their favorite artist, that they've come out on this rainy Thursday night to be here. So those 30 people are the 30 people that are going to be like your ambassadors,
Yeah.
They're going to tell everybody about
it. And there's a kind of like intimacy to that, a kind of closeness that, you can only have at that point in that time and that place.
Yeah.
And if there'd been 300 people there, it wouldn't have been quite as special, or it's like so unique, right?
Definitely. Yeah. So when we have a listening party, we have like, 10 out of hundreds of people that only 10 show up, but it's trying to give them the best experience that
Yeah,
they can have
yeah.
within
And for
that.
those 10 people, they're the people who really care about it and who are like, willing to make time and be there for it. So yeah, I think one other quick one that I wanted to talk to you about, building on that theme and that topic of the pandemic and kind of lockdowns kind of ending and people going back out. I know that in my research, I found that you presented a documentary for BBC Three about potentially the end of clubbing in the UK.
Yeah, it's a controversial title. It's the end of
Yeah.
clubbing. It wasn't the end. Yeah.
It's the end of the world.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, like, fast forward now, we're 2026, so 5-6 years later, how do you feel like, and you always see these news stories of venues shutting down and places closing and things like that. I'm just curious, how do you feel like the health of the music ecosystem is in the UK today? The venue side, the live side.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a struggle. I think it's definitely hard, but there are pockets of positivity, definitely. Like, I don't think it's all doom and gloom and it's the end. I think that there are active communities and places and spaces that are trying to do something in the face of, the declining health, because a lot of it's kind of factors outside of, it's not just that people don't want to go raving. That's not actually, I don't believe that's true. I think it's about the amount of venues and how much it costs to run, a venue. We're living in times where rapid gentrification of areas is having a knock-on effect on places that used to be cool to rave in. Now it's hard to play music loudly, So there's so much kind of like so many other factors that it's not just the kids aren't raving or they're not drinking anymore. I don't necessarily see that because I see people out all the time. I think I don't know. I think what I've loved is being in this place called Carpet Shop in Peckham. So I did it's 200 cap. It's like a no frills under the train arches, like no frills club, but great sound. And they have basically just become this sort of trusted place that people will just go on any given day. It's a good price point to get in. It's built up a reliable audience of people that will just go. But then also, for you to bring your own audience there as well. It could look full with 50 people on the dance floor. You could still have a great time there. It reminds me of like clubbing when you're younger. Like that you're just going for the music, you're just going for the sound. People are polite to one another on the dance floor.
What do you think they did differently or correct? Like, is there like a programmer there or somebody who figured out?
I think a mixture of the programming obviously helped, being specific in the kind of music that they were focusing on, with it being underground sort of UK club music. I think they tapped into like existing communities as well, whether it was kind of people that had radio shows or wider sort of like the night stood for something, like every night every night stood for something or still stands for something. It's not I don't think it's necessarily like we have to sell out if it's like bringing in an audience that doesn't feel represented all the time, So I don't know, maybe integrity. All I can think of is integrity. I mean, I'm trying to think what is it that they've done that others haven't been able to do, but I think they have integrity. Like I would say from the door to the floor, like you walk in, it's nice. Security treats you nice. The bar staff's nice.
The door to the floor.
Yeah, like you feel like you're welcome,
Yeah.
You feel like you're safe. So I think just a lot of effort has gone into the care around it, the duty of care, the care in who they're booking, the care in who they're employing, the care in the sound, and they don't need nothing else. And then and there's definitely that's just a handful of places that I could mention. There's other places like that are doing similar work and similar things. So I still feel there's something. I don't feel like it's all lost yet. I recently did a tour at the end of last year with Giles Peterson. We did like independent music venues, all 200 caps. Some shows were like, one of the shows was 7 p.m. to 11. And I was like, oh my God, okay, that's weird. But a great time in Newcastle. People raved really hard for that period of time. Um, a couple of them, one of them was in a pub called the Golden Lion in this place called Todmorden, which is just outside of Manchester, about a 20-minute drive outside of Manchester. That's probably the best one. That was just mad. That was just like they were so up for it. It's like Andrew Everhall used to play there all the time. It's just got rich history, rich community around it. And then I did one Sunday session where I did it started at like 4 till 9 p.m. And I just thought there's so many different ways to rave or to enjoy, music. We also have to evolve in that as well, and especially as I get older, thinking about my audience, it might not always be the 11 p.m. till 4 a.m. nights that they want to go to. So it's kind of, I don't know, moving and flowing and adapting again with people and their habits and their interests.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes kind of read those headlines and I just wonder if it sounds really bad because it's like iconic music venue that's closing down and stuff, but maybe there's a generational element to it too, where, that place has had its good 20 years, 30 years, whatever it is. And you maybe don't see as many headlines about up and coming new venues because they're new, right? Like they don't have that legendary status yet, but maybe this new venue in 10 or 20 years will have that legendary status.
Yeah.
And so
that was like the carpet shop. They sell out. They said we've sold out every weekend of last year,
Wow.
And then you could say, okay, well, 250 people, but it's still it's keeping them running every weekend.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And so maybe in like 5 or 10 years time, like people will look at that as a sort of legendary venue. And that's just, I think there are life cycles in music venues and culture and the nighttime economy. And I think that sometimes imagine that somewhere will last forever and maybe had some really good times there, but it's unlikely to kind of survive and also be in survive in the same way, right? Like I know, for example, in New York, like people brought back Studio 54 a couple of times, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't, like back in the 70s or whatever. So I think that there is a kind of like sometimes this desire to like hold on to the past, and maybe it's like in a forest, right? Like a tree falls and then there's, mushrooms that come and they grow and regenerate it.
Yeah, definitely. No, and actually, if you speak to most people, their club that they used to go, like if you go all the way back to like the inception of clubbing and raving as we know it, like let's say if we went back to the 80s, like outside of the free parties, I mean, I think maybe one or two might have survived just, venues. No one's like, yeah, my venue's still going strong and I'm still going to it.
Yeah. It's just a generational thing, right? Like,
yeah,
people
I just want people to feel like they can still rave, though. I think there was maybe a period of time where they felt like there was a cut off and you had to stop going out, and I don't think that is true, because I think I still want to push the importance of being on the dance floor and the collective nature of it and what it can really do for you. Being in those spaces, if you give it a try. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want it to be like, oh, I'm 40 now, so therefore I can't rave. Like, why? Or if I'm 60 now and therefore I shouldn't be going out. Like, do you still love it? Do you enjoy it? Is it still a safe space for you? Then definitely go. But I feel like, yeah, that's kind of my own fears and worries. Probably I'm projecting onto people as well. But like, I don't ever want people to think that they can't rave anymore because of age.
No, I agree with that. I think if the music is good and it gives you energy, then it doesn't really matter if you're, 10 years old or 100 years old. I hope we can still be dancing when we, turn 100. Oh, God. However
old we make it. Frame. Yeah. And intergenerational dance floors are the best dance floors. I think there's a level of care that you don't get, on an intergenerational dance floor. Like, it's just the equilibrium's just right. It's perfect when you have all those different ages moving.
That's why I love Notting Hill Carnival and things like that. That's where you really get that kind of like all ages participate.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important. It is important. And I think of it as our, like, it goes so far back, this kind of communal period of sharing music, or festivities, And I think it's just a shame that it's a carnal need that isn't always protected by the powers that be. People in higher places don't see clubbing and raving as something to protect, because they can't even see it as an economy, but it is, and it brings a lot of money. I mean, I got into beef with someone once about which I probably changed my stance on a little bit. We grow. I think when I did the clubbing doc, this woman said, she said, "Oh, why are we crying about clubs closing? There's, who cares, kind of thing." And I was like, "Well, you might not care, but like, I think I said something, I can't remember it, but I think I said something like, no one flies to another country just to go to one restaurant, but you might fly to a place to go to a club." And yeah, she kind of got a bit of backlash on that, because there is a generation of people that will fly to a country to go to one restaurant. Me personally, not for me, but I would fly to a country to go to a club. I 100% would. I definitely would. So I saw her. She still hates me for that comment. She's always in my. I know she hasn't. I don't know,
just following you everywhere.
Just follow me. Just like, I don't like you. You once said this. I'm like, okay, whatever. I kind of stand by it, but I also am a bit more open, because now I have flown to countries for restaurants. So
yeah, I mean,
I guess it swings and roundabouts.
I guess that's sort of like somebody who doesn't really understand or even just appreciate the kind of the power of music culture and bringing people together on the dance floor and things like that. So I don't know if you're ever gonna be able to like win them over or win that argument.
No, yeah, exactly. It's kind of like challenging. But however, I do believe that even if something is not for you, but it brings people joy, we shouldn't be obnoxious enough to just kind of sideline it, like, because I don't go to the theatre, therefore let the theatres burn down. I'm like, no,
And maybe what she needs is like a nephew or something to take her out to a nightclub and share a good time.
Take her to the Berghain.
Exactly.
No, probably.
Yeah.
So no, I love it, and I think I always want to DJ. I want to DJ. I want to be in these spaces, and till the end. I do.
Sweet. Well, I think on that note, feels like a good place to kind of wrap it up. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate you joining, sharing all the knowledge and wisdom and stories and things like that.
Yeah.
And where can, just to let people know where they can find you, like what's the best places to kind of keep in touch?
Instagram, just Jamz Supernova and everything. Got my radio show every Saturday. At 1 o'clock, you listen anytime, at your own leisure. And then I think, you know what, I've got a little mailing list. If you go to my bio and my Instagram, I've got a mailing list you can sign up to, and I do my little my monthly newsletters, and just share thoughts and music and cultural recommendations. And I think that's a good place, because I'll talk about the radio, or talk about mixes, or give away exclusive stuff, but then there's also just kind of lighter music chat in there as well.
Yeah, nice. Awesome. Sweet. Well, thank you very much, Jamz. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Nico. Yeah, it's been lovely.
Excellent rest of your day, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you.